foremost, it's a solemn time to be talking about this, and we understand it's difficult for the whole community. A life has been lost, and we understand that nothing can really fill this void. But I want the community to know, especially, that we're working diligently to bring justice to the victim. This morning, I had an opportunity to meet with the family and to discuss the investigation, where we're at, and I appreciate them taking that time to meet with me. One of the things we discussed was making sure that we remember who is at the center of this investigation and what this is all about. While it's not our typical protocol to release information on a juvenile, the family has asked and given us permission to share Preston's name. So we want to remember that he is at the focus of this investigation. The one thing they also asked me is to share that they did ask for privacy during this difficult time as we go through this investigation. Now, as I mentioned, our focus is conducting an investigation that's thorough and that brings justice to Preston, and it's imperative that information is properly managed and sent to the police department in the proper fashion. We're going to go over some details in that here in just a minute. But first, I would like to have Commander Newman give just a little bit of overview of the actual incident on October 28th. I'll turn it over to him.
All right, thank you. Commander Mark Newman, NEWMAN. So Queen Creek Police Department responded to multiple large juvenile disturbances on October 28th. While we are investigating all reports and incidents, we are focused on the critical incident involving a death investigation. Here's an outline of the events that took place that evening. At 9:07 p.m., the Queen Creek Police Department received a call to the non-emergency line in regards to a juvenile disturbance in the area of Villa del Oro and 194th Street. Officers responded to the area and located a number of juveniles leaving the area. No illegal activity was observed at that time. Within a few minutes, the officers on scene were diverted to a high priority call with a potential crime in progress. At 9:49 p.m., QCPD received a 911 call in regards to an assault in the area of 194th Street in Villa del Rancho. Officers there discovered a victim, later identified as Preston Lord, in the roadway, and officers administered life-saving efforts. Preston was transported to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Sadly, on Monday, October 30th, Preston passed away in the hospital. While we are waiting for the findings of the medical examiner, our department is investigating this as a homicide. As part of the investigation, we requested information from the community. We appreciate all the community's help in providing tips. As of noon today, we've received 76 tips from members of our community, and we're diligently working through each of those tips to vet the information, to include several investigative leads. We ask our community if anybody has eyewitness information or video of the assault that they call our non-emergency line at 480-358-3500. All other tips that are not eyewitness testimony or eyewitness video can be submitted through email at qcpdinvestigators@queencreekaz.gov or by telephone at 480-358-3575. And please reference case number 2023-26401. We're also aware of many rumors that are circulating on social media. I want to take an opportunity to address a couple of those today. The first rumor is that officers were on site during the party. We can confirm that no QCPD officers were called to the residence where the party took place, and no QCPD officers responded to that party until after the assault took place. We are aware of other parties that took place in that evening elsewhere in the town, and we know some of the tips we've been receiving are from those other party locations. The second rumor to address is that there were many calls that reported this party, and the QCPD did not respond. Based on what we know now, or know today, QCPD received one call to the non-emergency line regarding the neighborhood and one emergency call to the intersection of 194th and Villa del Rancho for the assault incident. Several additional calls regarding this neighborhood did come in after our officers had already arrived on scene to investigate the assault. And it's also noted that other calls came in that night were other disturbances or gatherings elsewhere within our town. With that information, I want to turn the microphone back over to Chief Price.
So I want to go into a little more detail about some of the internet issues, Facebook, all of the other social media channels, and a lot of the tips that we're receiving. But again, to bring back the focus, this is all about Preston, and that's why we're so passionate about making sure that we get the right information and that our investigators are given the time to do what they need to do. So again, our hearts are out to the family on this. So as Commander Newman mentioned, we're working through a large volume of tips. While we have somewhere, 76 tips so far, we also have received at least 400 posts or comments on our social media channels. It's imperative that those tips go through the police department in the manner that we've already described, not on social media. While good intention, these postings on social media could possibly jeopardize the investigation. And when the tips aren't sent to us directly, it reduces the number of resources that can be focused on the actual investigation. It's also imperative that we vet every single tip that comes out, and we're working diligently to make sure we do that. Now, particularly, we have a lot of other multiple large gatherings that are being confused with this particular event, and we're getting video and information from these other parties that are allegedly related to our event. So we're having to go through each one of those independently. Please do not post information online and expect that that is a tip that is going to be easily accessed for us. Contact us through the means that we've already indicated. One of the other problems that we've been seeing is that the public posts lead to misidentification and targeting of individuals in the community that may not even be associated with this particular event. And we want to caution people about doing that. We also want to remind everyone that while we're investigating this incident, our investigators are very busy, but we don't want people to take this social media information and use that to approach or attack individuals in the community that they think might be associated with this call. Not only could that be illegal, but it could jeopardize the investigation in general. And again, this is all about getting justice for Preston. We are investigating all aspects of this case, including individuals that may have hosted, attended, or somehow involved in this incident. So it's rather cumbersome and a vast amount of information that we have to go through. One of the things that we're hearing, again, that Commander Newman brought up is that other people believe that a lot of neighbors have been calling in for hours. We can restate, again, based on the information we know now and today, is that one call for service was sent to us for this event or in the area prior to the assault call. And I want to reiterate to the public that if you see something, please say something when these types of events are happening in your areas. Also of note, we'd like to encourage our residents, if they see any type of large gatherings in the future, while not necessarily illegal in and of itself, we will respond and investigate and figure out what type of violations that may be present, but our main focus is to keep the community safe. If you're involved, and this is one of my last statements before we take questions, is we want to encourage that anybody that's involved, has firsthand knowledge of this information, to come forward. If you're a witness or you're involved directly, we encourage you to do the right thing and come to us and talk to us about what you've seen or what occurred or what you're involved in. So with that, we'll open up to questions. And we have a few minutes to do that, so we'll give you some time. Yes?
So are you saying at 9:07 when officers first arrived, did they see the streets lined with cars, teens walking around in Halloween costume, and open alcohol like neighbors saw? Did they see that?
So the first call, as we mentioned, at that time, the officers observed no criminal activity. So there was no alcohol seen by the officers, no other criminal activity. And they did see people walking down the street, which again is not illegal in and of itself. They saw legally parked cars, but did not observe any criminal activity, and then were diverted to another priority call.
What was that high priority call?
It was a family fight, a domestic violence call.
And so was there another party in that same neighborhood then?
No, there was not.
So that was the only party going on?
Yes, that was the only party going on in that specific subdivision. The closest next party that we were dealing with at that time was a mile and a half away.
Because we definitely talked to neighbors who said they called 911, they have people jumping over their fence, this is getting out of control, this is chaotic, you need to come back.
So to answer, again, so for the audience out there, the question is about that a lot of people were calling that there's chaotic activity, people jumping over the fence. So as mentioned before, we did receive multiple calls after the assault call that were exactly what you're describing, but not before the assault call. Okay, and we were already on scene.
My last question, the home that originally hosted this party, so is there an investigation into the homeowner? Where does that stand? Are they cooperating? Have you interviewed them? What type of possible charges are
So while I won't get into specifics because it's still under investigation, but as I mentioned before, we're looking at all aspects of the case, whether you were hosting, involved, or just were at the party. We're looking into all aspects and how that relates to this investigation.
Do you have an idea of if there were adults at this party and how many teens were there?
So while some of those facts are still under investigation, I'm not going to comment on them. I'll give you an estimate based on the witness statements. It's anywhere from 100 to 200 at the time where the party was just about to break up.
And were parents there?
Sorry, so the question is, were there parents there? So again, we did have, not going to give into great specifics, but because it's still under investigation, but we did have adults on site at the home.
Just to clarify, can you explain how officers know there wasn't another party going on in that neighborhood? Did officers drive through that subdivision to make sure there wasn't another party? A lot of neighbors have said that there were 2 parties going on and kids were jumping from party to party.
So the question is, how did we determine whether or not there was another party in the area, and that the fact that there were people saying that people were jumping from party to party? So this is a lot of why there's confusion about the evidence and the tips that we're getting in. Is what we can gather is that it's most likely referring to the party that was about 1.5 miles away. We, as part of our investigation, had canvassed most of that neighborhood. We were driving through the neighborhood. We had secured most of the neighborhood as part of the investigation. So from the time that we arrived on the call where the assault occurred, I can tell you that there was no other party in that area.
And then also speaking with neighbors, people reaching out to us on our story yesterday, we've heard that there have been some threats. And so some people are afraid to come forward. Some people have video of the fight but don't want to get caught up in all of this. What are you guys doing about that? Is there a message you have for the community, or can somebody face charges if they're threatening that they might do something to somebody who comes forward?
So I think there's about 4 questions there, so let me see if I can reiterate and respond to those. So the first part of that question is, were there any threats that we know of that are out there that are keeping people from coming forward? So while I don't have any specific threats that we've seen, what I can say to you is that we have concern about the social media postings that are, one, inaccurate, have a tendency to misidentify or target individuals, as I mentioned already. And so this is part of that effort, is to tell people, please stop doing that. It's not helpful. We want you to contact us through the means that we've already identified. And if there's any legitimate threats, we are working with either our agency or the agency that would be the jurisdiction to take care of that threat, to manage and investigate those questions. So was there a third question I missed?
I think it's just, if people are feeling like they're afraid to come forward, can you clarify if they're able to do so anonymously, if they're able to send in some of these tips where their names are not attached to it?
Yeah, so we have several methods for people to report the tips. We want to get any tip that will lead us to further in the investigation. If somebody is an eyewitness or has direct evidence, we would really like to talk to those individuals, because it's important to be able to identify the source of the information. So that's more of an investigative thing that we need to respond to. But yes, we will take anonymous information. But again, what we're looking for primarily is if you were an eyewitness or have direct evidence of the video or other of the incident that we're talking about today.
So do you have a suspect description yet? Do we know who we're looking for, or do you have video of the assault to know, an age range? Were these for sure teens, young adults?
So great question. The question is, do we have video evidence and do we have a suspect? So as I've mentioned before, there's a lot of moving parts in this investigation. There's a lot of facts that we're going through and trying to identify those leads and investigative leads and witnesses. So we're moving forward. I'm not going to comment on necessarily exactly where we're at, but we're making good gains in the investigation. And when we get to the point where we're ready to make arrest, we'll make sure that that's announced, and we're ready to move forward. But right now, I can't comment specifically about those facts.
Because we're dealing with kids that may have been underage, is there a potential for them to be charged as adults now that we're looking at this as a murder investigation?
So again, we will work closely with the county attorney to determine the charging parameters of this case. So I'm not going to necessarily comment on that until we have all the facts in place. But yes, we will look at the full extent of the law to make sure that we are getting justice for Preston.
We have time for one more question.
On that first call, were you guys aware of a party, even though it may not have seemed illegal at the time? And was there any indication that the kids from that party were getting in their cars and driving to the other parties in other neighborhoods?
So there was a lot of facts in that question, so I don't know if I can repeat it all, but I'll see if I can at least summarize in the answer. Is that when the officers arrived on scene, they first of all did not have any information provided by the caller of a party. The call was about teens walking down the street, doing various activities. So we did not have any information about a party. When the officers were on scene, they did not see the party, observe the party, or any crimes in progress. And what appeared to them is that there was a large group of people leaving. Where they were going, I can't comment to. I don't know.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Was there a problem with this home in the past? Any calls for a party at this home in the past?
So those are facts that are still under investigation. We'll be able to release that once we get our full investigation done.
I just want to ask really quick though about the home where the party was. Is there any indication that it just got out of control, that people showing up from high schools, multiple high schools, 3 to 4, that weren't even supposed to be there, that this became kind of like a social media address that got blasted that never should have been?
So that is a fact that we are looking into, and it's a trend that we're looking at, but the details are still coming together, so I don't necessarily have the ability to comment fully on that, but that is an aspect of the investigation.
All right, that's all.
Chief,
All right, thank you.
I have 2 questions. Your name.
Sorry.
Your name.
Yes, sorry.
Can I have your name and
You sure
title?
can. Chief Randy Bryce, RandyBrice.
And your name, sir.
Sure.
Mark Newman, Newman, that's Mark with a K.
Are you a
Commander.
captain?
Commander.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Quick question, follow-up question. Because you guys have been requesting